Is there a certain project or promotion that you worked alongside your team at Red Bull on that stands out to you as being a defining moment in your marketing journey?
Yes. I don't know if you remember the Red Bull Stratos project where Felix Baumgartner skydived from the stratosphere. Do you remember that?
Tell us about it.
So Red Bull is obviously known for pushing the limits, and they had this guy Felix who was, one of their athletes who had, thousands of skydiving jumps and base jumps and all these things. And the idea came of like, what if we could jump from like a space capsule in the stratosphere, which I think is 128,000 feet above Earth. I mean, it basically looks like space. You're that high. And there was a guy that did this in the 70s. I believe it was the 70s. Basically, it was a research project for the Air Force for their like surveillance planes that would go super high to like 80,000 feet, like during the Cold War era.
All the space race stuff going on.
So he was like a test dummy for them to see if like a pilot had to bail out at like 80,000 feet, could it be done? So and I think his name was Joe. I hope I'm getting it right. Joe, but he did it. He jumped from like 80,000 feet in like the 70s, maybe I think it was 100,000 feet. It was somewhere up there, and he has the super rudimentary suit, yada yada yada. So Red Bull was like, I wonder if we could redo that but go higher. So they brought Joe in as like the mentor of the project lead. Yeah. Right now, technology got way better, of course. NASA jumped on board because they're like, hey, this could actually be useful for us getting some research. If we have to have an astronaut bail out, like, is it even possible? What would that even look like?
Yeah.
So they got on board, helped with this, like the spacesuit and all that. So long story short, Felix went up to like 130,000 feet. They did a live broadcast on YouTube. This was before like, I think YouTube like live was big. And Red Bull had told YouTube, hey, like you're going to need like the bandwidth to stream, like, I don't know what they said. This is a guess, but like, 10 million viewers. And YouTube was like,
a ridiculous number.
You're like, you're crazy. Like, we're going to give you bandwidth for like 1 million views, right? Or something. And Red Bull's like, no, you don't understand. This is going to be like a monumental moment in like live media, right? Yeah. And so they did they're about to do it, and thank God the weather wasn't right, because they blew past like the viewers, like the amount of bandwidth.
Sure.
So they said, hey, we're going to roll this right 24 hours. We're going to do it again when the weather's right. So YouTube was able to get their shit together and in like up. So they did it. I think they broke all kinds of records. And one cool thing, this is the story I've told a lot of people. Felix did a test jump. I think it was like around 100,000 feet, right? It wasn't broadcasted. And at that high, you can already see the curvature of the Earth, and you like basically feel like you're in space. And as he described it, when he jumped out of the capsule, for a second there, he thought he wasn't actually falling. He thought he was floating away into space. And he like, for a few seconds thought, did we calculate like gravity wrong at this high? Because the air is so thin up there and you're so far away from the Earth, your perspective of Earth isn't changing because you're so far away. So it's not like if you jump out of an airplane at 13,000 feet, you can kind of see.
You're going to feel going down.
One, you feel the air because the air's thicker, and you see people are getting, things on the ground are getting closer as you float. But at 100,000 feet, you don't notice anything, right? So for a split second there, because he felt no wind, right? And the Earth looks the same. He was like, am I floating away like it from Earth?
Yeah.
And then obviously as he got going a little bit further and the air started to thicken, he's like, oh, I'm actually falling. Okay, good. So that was like his freak out moment on the test jump that they had not, he said, I had not taken into account how thin that air was. So that was cool. It was one of those things, man. It's just, one of the many things they've done to kind of push the limits on conventional marketing. And I think I learned a lot from what they did and applied. Now, obviously, Born Primitive, I'm not doing it anywhere near on that scale, but I learned a lot about brand. And
Sure.
That's a little bit more of that creative side and how to, instill the brand values and do things in a way that people pick up, almost as if like a brand is a person, right? And if the person has personality traits, how do you portray those traits to your consumers? And that's what Red Bull did really well. And then we've tried to do that with Born Primitive.